Welcome back to Sunrise. Thanks so much for staying with us or joining us, depending on where you are right now. So April is Autism Acceptance Month. The spotlight is being placed on the need for public awareness to promote acceptance, celebrate the differences, and be more inclusive towards autistic individuals around us. Joining us this morning is licensed speech-language pathologist Anne-Marita Golding. Welcome to Sunrise.
Welcome to Sunrise, Anne-Marita. How are you doing?
Hi, TK. Hi, Dennis. It's nice to see you.
All is well?
All is well.
You know,
Got early, but
you know, I find it fascinating what you do because, I mean, especially in relation to with autistic children, because autism, as an example of neurodivergence, presents a range of challenges,
Absolutely.
a range of opportunities, and people with autism process information differently. First of all, where you come in terms of treating persons with autism, what are some of the challenges that autism presents from a speech pathology perspective?
so I will get calls and patients or parents reach out, teachers reach out because children are just not speaking. That's usually the first indication that something is wrong. They're 2 years old, they're 3 years old, they might be making sounds, they may be still babbling, but they're not actually producing speech words, or they're not communicating verbally, they're pointing. So we would say that child is likely nonverbal at that time. So that is really it. I mean, by the time a child is 18 months old, we expect that child to have anything between 10 and 50 words. So if a child is 3 years old and they don't have 50 words, there is a huge indication that something is wrong.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily indicate that they are on the autism spectrum, because we would then do a case history and look at it in a wholesome way to see what could be the problem. Could be hearing loss. That could also mirror or impact the way a child learns language. But we start at the very beginning and begin to assess to see what could be awry at that point.
Let me ask this. For those who may not be very familiar with speech pathology, they've maybe heard of it but don't know exactly what that means. Who is a speech pathologist and how do they play a role in an issue like that?
So
what would you do?
A speech pathologist is a licensed clinician who is trained in communication sciences and disorders. So we're trained to assess, evaluate, diagnose, and treat communication disorders that fall under speech and language. Remember, there's speech, so that's everything you're hearing coming out of my mouth. But then there's language, that's the information, that's the body of what we're seeing. So a child could have a speech issue, maybe because of something physiological or otherwise, or developmental, or they could have a language issue. So it's not that they're not able to produce speech, they just don't have what I call the roadmap for developing and using language.
Find it fascinating because even, you know, watching things that you've posted on social media before, clearly this child is dealing with something in terms of placement of words in their mouth, which is something different from maybe a more
that's
cognitive,
articulation.
Right?
So that's speech. That's speech.
Which, as opposed to something that's more cognitive in nature.
Right.
We're going to look some more at this. I'm sure there are parents who are saying, I need to have a conversation with that woman. We will facilitate that. But hold the thought. TK has to actually scoot around and get ready for the news, which is up at 7. So we'll be right back. We'll pick things up when we return. We are speaking with Anne-Marita Golding, a speech and language pathologist. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us here on Sunrise. Welcome back. It is a Thursday morning and we are having a conversation with speech-language pathologist Anne-Marita Golding discussing autism awareness, particularly from a speech pathology perspective. Anne-Marita, you know, that conversation that you were having there is an example of what you do for so many on a daily basis. But that is clearly an older patient of yours.
It is.
But at what point should a parent become, you mentioned like the number of words at a particular age. At what point should the parents start to wonder, concerned?
Right. So when you have a child, and we're parents, so you know you begin to look for those developmental milestones.
Yes.
And certainly, you expect your child to be sitting up at 6 months. You expect them no later than 15 months to be walking unassisted. The same thing with speech. if you notice that your child isn't saying much, certainly by 18 months, they don't have many words, they're making sounds, they're not making very good eye contact, they prefer to play by themselves or with objects versus interacting with people. You notice things like they're flapping their hands, they become fixated on objects, things like spinning fans, or they're using toys perhaps in an incorrect manner, or they have very compulsive behaviors. They begin to stack objects or have just very compulsive behaviors, repetitive behaviors. Then I would say you would want to have a conversation with your pediatrician to start to monitor these things and be guided by your doctor. Now, certainly from a communication standpoint, I've heard parents say, you know, my child was saying at least 10 words, and then one day they just stopped saying words and they started pointing. They get frustrated because they're not able to really communicate what they want, and so they point, and if you don't understand, they have a meltdown. So they have very big emotions, you know, not just the normal tantrums that we expect from toddlers. Have these conversations with your pediatrician. And, you know, I want to caution parents, a delay in development does not mean a disorder.
Yes.
You have kids that are delayed and they will catch up, and they sometimes need intervention to catch up. But just because a child is delayed doesn't automatically mean that they're on the spectrum, and I don't want anybody to think that. That is why it's important to have the conversation, to do your own research, and to be your own advocate for your child.
And Marita, a parent or guardian who has detected a few of these things and they are, you know, now concerned, are there anything that they can do at home that can maybe help with the development of a child's speech?
Absolutely. So one of the things that stands out to me the most, and I have this conversation with the parents of my little clients, please, 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 parents, let's get back to basics. Come off the screens, come off the iPad, the tablet. You see, gone are the days when we had one TV in the living room and everybody had to watch it and interact about and talk about what they were watching, whether it was news or cartoons or whatever. Kids have now become very isolated. You give them a tablet and it's not helping to generate and foster language development. People believe that because they sit in front of Cocomelon or Miss Rachel and they're singing these nursery rhymes or saying these words, it's very one-dimensional. Everything is going in. It doesn't demand of that part of the brain to generate expressive language skill. Remember, these are things that we learn through interaction. We all learned speech and language through interacting with our parents, our cousins, kids in the community, in the complex. And these are things we need to get back to. Instead of saying to your child, what is this? What is this? What is this? And waving an object in their face, say, you show them a duck, what is this? Instead say, oh, you have a duck there. Quack, quack. The duck goes quack, quack. Oh, the duck is walking. So you're pairing language with actual action. So they're beginning to, you are drawing a blueprint for them so that they can connect the dots. And through modeling and repetition, you are able to then begin to generate language development. Because I kid you not, if you put that child on a device and expect that they're going to learn how to navigate and use language, it's not going to happen. They may understand a lot, but then how do we gauge how much they understand? They may be able to follow one single step directions, but then what happened to multi-steps and complex directions? What happened to nonverbal skills? A lot of our kids nowadays are struggling to understand nonverbal skills like body language and context. They're not getting it because gone are the days where we interact with each other. Everybody's head is down in a screen. So those are some things that parents can do at home. And narrate what your children are doing. You know, get fun. Use intonation. Children like animation. They like when your inflection goes up and down. And get on the floor with them. We are on our phones,
Yeah.
but they want to play, and children learn through play-based activity. So
I know
I
this.
am so, listen, we all did it. We
Yes,
all
yes.
had to give the device so that we could get some work done, or we could cook or take a shower. But children under 18 months, actually, the American Pediatric Association does not recommend any screens before 18 months because
I've seen
of the
that.
development of the child's brain. And for children at 2, they recommend 1 hour a day.
Seen that?
And it should not be a consistent hour. When you're, unless you are doing something like FaceTime and you're having communication with a loved one or a family member.
Yeah, and Marita, we're going to have to ask you to come back next week.
I'll be back next week.
Just real quick, Dennis mentioned watching a video or something that you had online. Where can people maybe check you out on a social platform or anything?
I speech therapy JA on Instagram.
Therapy JA on Instagram.
Right.
Awesome.
All
We'll do
right.
that. So thank you to Anne-Marita Golding, speech language pathologist. Let's take a quick break here, and we have more Sunrise after this.